On today's show, the Atlanta Hawks are at home from now until the actual start of the season in about a week and a half, but they started their home slate in preseason action on Monday evening, and they won in thrilling fashion in overtime. It was a bit of a mess. We'll get into all of that, the zombie roster, and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2075 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you deep in the night here on a Monday evening into Tuesday. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer at FanDuel, you bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the podcast, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out, subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, etc. Please check us out. Tell your friends. I definitely appreciate you spreading the word for the podcast, and I appreciate you being here as always. We'll be diving in to what became a pretty interesting game in some respects, definitely a sickos kind of game on Monday evening. But first, I want to say thank you to everyone for sticking with me over the last week and a half or so. If you missed it on the show last week and the week before, I have been traveling abroad to a place that I've never been before, and it was a challenge in some respects. It was a fun trip in some respects, all those things. But podcast-wise, we did have a full slate of shows last week with 5 episodes on this feed, but they were not necessarily the typical ones where I was reacting to the first two games that the Hawks played on the road in preseason action. But today, I returned home from a very lengthy trip, very lengthy travel and all that stuff, went straight to the arena and covered this game in depth with the Hawks take on the Miami Heat tonight. But later on in the show, I'll give you my kind of quick observations from the first two games before this. And they actually had to do much more with the guys who are, I would say, the core of the Hawks roster. And really the headliner, beyond the fact that the Hawks won this game 119-118 in overtime against Miami, was that it was basically a zombie kind of roster for the Hawks. What I mean by that is, earlier on Monday afternoon, the Hawks announced that they're actually going to be signing Lamont Butler, Davon Smith, and MJ Walker to Exhibit 10 contracts. Well, they actually just announced they were contracts. These are Exhibit 10 deals that basically, this is kind of par for the course. Teams can carry up to 21 players in the preseason, basically until the season begins. I can have an overflowing roster in order to kind of give yourself depth to be able to scrimmage and practice and all that stuff. And the Hawks were able to do that here. With that said, I was hearing right away it was kind of a precursor to the Hawks maybe not playing everyone tonight in the game. Overall, by the way, Butler, Smith, and Walker are there for preseason depth and also just College Park stuff. Not going to be projecting those guys to make the team at this point in time, but I heard it was a signal that it might rest some guys. I kind of shared that on Twitter at that point in time. And in the end, Quinn Snyder came out in pregame, and Quinn does not usually do opening statements in pregame. Very rarely does he do that, actually, but he kind of came out and said immediately that the Hawks were going to rest some guys. He didn't say the word rest, more like guys were not going to play in the game. He noted, quote, typical bumps and bruises, end quote, for a lot of different guys. I also said and kind of mentioned the relatively quick turnaround. The Hawks did play on Saturday in Memphis, which is a time zone change, all that stuff, and they're playing again Monday night in an early game, a 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time game on Monday evening. And then he also said the Hawks wanted to have the opportunity to have some guys who are battling for roster spots and roles, et cetera, to actually be on the court a little bit more. Wanted to kind of pay them off for working hard, especially, and they have decisions to make as a team in the next week and a half or so about the roster. So that led to uncertainty for a while on who was going to play in this game, because Quinn said all that and then didn't say who wasn't going to play. But in the end, 9 of the projected top 10 players for the Hawks this season coming into the year by me did not play in this game, including the entire top 8. The only player that I would say is projected to be in the top 10 in minutes for the Hawks for me that played in this game was Vit Krejci. Everybody else did not. And by the way, Vit's no higher than 9th in the order of that. As a reminder, or just maybe you didn't notice it already, during the regular season, teams have to file injury reports. Pretty stringent process. Teams can get slapped for kind of tinkering with it a little bit. The Hawks are not always the most transparent in the world, but they do have to file reports on injuries. In the preseason, it is definitely the Wild Wild West. You don't have to say anything about anybody, whether it's listings, whether it's inactives. All you have to do is announce starting fives, like half hour before the game. Other than that, it's Wild Wild West. So we knew it was going to be some guys. Like I was there monitoring who was coming out to shoot in the pregame and all of that. In the end, no Trae Young, no Dyson Daniels, no Nick Alexander-Walker, no Jalen Johnson, Okongwu, Porzingis, et cetera. Those guys all did not play in this game. So teams are not, again, pressed to do anything, but it was the zombie Hawks. I say that affectionately. I enjoy depth. I enjoy, role players, et cetera. But it was an oddly shaped roster for the Hawks in this game. But Miami played their normal guys, and that's maybe an encouraging sign. I don't want to go too far overboard with that because results in preseason games do not necessarily move me on the whole, I would say. But the Hawks faced off against Miami's, at least B-plus team. Like, Tyler Hero's hurt right now. And other than that, though, it was just, and Jokic didn't play, but Bam did play for a while. Wiggins played, Norm Powell played, Khalil Ware played, Jaime Jaquez played. So it was a real team the Hawks were playing against with their zombie guys. They ended up winning this one in thrilling fashion. But it was pretty hideous. I have to be honest with you about that. Neither team cracked 40% shooting from the field. Neither team in this game. The two teams combined to shoot 20.7% from three. Not 27%, 20.7% from three in the game. There were a lot of guys. I'm just going to read some numbers real quickly. 0 for 3, 0 for 3, 0 for 2, 0 for 2, 0 for 2, 0 for 4, 2 for 9, 0 for 6, 1 for 7, 0 for 4, 0 for 4 from three. Individual players. Like, no one's going to make a shot in this game, basically. The Hawks won this one despite shooting 12 of 48 from three in the game. And they had 22 assists in a full game plus overtime. That's a very, very low number for this Hawks team. And they won. But they had four guys score 18 points or more. That was headlined by Caleb Houston, who hit the game winner, and Jacob Toppin, who had the actual led-all scorer with 26 points in this game. And then also they had 20 offensive rebounds in this game. Charles Bassey had 9 of them by himself. That's a crazy high number on the offensive glass in a single game. And big picture again, like, we'll go into kind of the game flow of this one. It was kind of, I don't want to say you throw it away, as you don't. Like, there's little things you can observe. Asa Newell played a big role in this game. Obviously, he was probably the headline attraction for the Hawks and Hawks fans in this one. Lamont Butler had a good game, kind of coming out of nowhere, and he's tied to the Hawks all summer long. But beyond that, it was like, all right, the Hawks ran some stuff. They were competitive. They definitely guarded well in this game. The bench ended up working out pretty well in this one, but they kind of won on the margins. They didn't shoot the ball well, but neither did Miami. I think there's some credit to go around for both defenses on that front. But it was a game that I don't want to go crazy on as far as telling you, like, they did this because they couldn't do this and shooting and all that stuff. Like, offensively, it was a slog. I mean, they scored a lot of points in the end because of free throws, offensive rebounds. But on an efficiency basis, a first shot offensive perspective in this game, it was pretty rough for Atlanta. But roster-wise, if you're playing 48 minutes with either Keaton Wallace or Lamont Butler or Nikola Juricic at point guard as the initiator, you probably aren't going to score a ton of points, especially because you don't even have Jalen Johnson. Like, your secondary creator is like, maybe Vit Krejci at the absolute best, or Caleb Houston or whatever. So it was both expected and not the best, I would say, offensively, but they did compete defensively. Quinn seemed pretty happy with it overall, and the Hawks managed to steal a win over a team in which they were certainly undermanned talent-wise and established talent-wise. I am lower on Miami, and I usually am than most people. I think that roster is pretty flawed, and Eric Spoelstra, there's a lot of credit for molding it into a pretty decent basketball team because the talent level on the team is not very high. But the Hawks winning this game was surprising, and also not something I'm terribly would tell you this like the most important thing in the world. But Quinn said this after the game, like, guys want to win. Like, if they're playing, these guys are pros. They want to win. The Hawks ended up kind of stealing this one, as we'll talk about later on, with a 3 at the end by Caleb Houston to a 7-point deficit in the final minute of an exhibition game. So with that said, we will dive in later in the podcast to kind of how this game unfolded. And then at the end of the podcast, some player-by-player evaluations, as well as some observations for the first 2 games of the preseason. We'll do all that and more in just one moment. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. The Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching, and that's a huge win in my view. It actually tracks your reps for you, just the right weights, it corrects your form at real time, making every single rep safer and smarter. They have a swivel screen as well. That's an absolute game changer. faster. You can go from running on a tread plus to strength training without missing a single beat. And then a personalized class recommendation for you that keeps you engaged. You also get workouts tailored to your vibe and your energy level each and every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Plus Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. That is onepeloton.com. The NFL season is ongoing right now. FanDuel has an offer for you that you absolutely do not want to miss. And if you are a new customer right now with FanDuel, you bet just $5. You get $300 in bonus picks if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is great in so many different ways. And one reason is that it actually fits however you like to bet on your own, whether it's player props, single parlays. They have straight bets, whether it's over-unders or point spreads, money lines, etc. Plus they have future bets and even live betting as the action unfolds. It makes watching football or basketball even more important and more exciting. We have something a little bit extra riding on the action. They have every single sport that you can think of across the board at FanDuel. Football's there. NBA, of course. College basketball is on the way pretty soon. College football is in full flux right now. Hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. Whether you are a casual fan or just want to kind of dive into the state of the stats in your own life, FanDuel makes the gaming experience so much better for you. FanDuel is quick, it's easy, the fastest payout when you win, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Saturdays, your game days, your Sundays, etc. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app right now and get started today. All right, we'll dive in now with some observations that I had kind of game flow wise in this one. If you are a new listener to the podcast, first of all, welcome to the pod. And second of all, what we do kind of generally speaking after games, kind of break down things from a big picture perspective, then we kind of dig into the weeds a little bit more, my more like nitty gritty observations and play things and, breaking things down from every angle that we can kind of see in a half hour-ish setting. As mentioned before, this is a relatively challenged lack of, offensive creation the Hawks had available in this game. Beat Krejci early on was very aggressive, like playing like he did in Eurobasket as the best player for the Czech Republic. He took 8 shots in 20 minutes. He took 7 threes. He was kind of bombing early on. I thought Foy Associates looked pretty good in this game. Asen Newell was bombing threes. He didn't actually make them. He was 0 for 6, but he shot 3 of them in the first 4 minutes. He missed them all, but they actually all looked confident to me, which is probably better and more important than the actual results. But given the absences of, again, Trey, Jalen, Dyson, Nikhil, Kristaps, Onyeka, all those guys did not play in this game, Atlanta had 10 guys in uniform, and they all played. They started with Keaton Wallace, Beat Krejci, Jacob Toppin, Asen Newell, and N'Faly Dante. Not exactly a overwhelming lineup for an NBA game. Then they came in with Juricic and Caleb Houston, followed by Lamont Butler in his first 8 minutes of his career, and then they also went to Eli Njai and Charles Bassey. Lamont Butler played pretty decently, I thought, actually. His first 8 minutes as a pro, had a nice steal, got an assist transition, hit a couple threes early on. If you remember, there was an erroneous report back in June that he was going to be signing a 2-way contract with the Hawks. That did not happen, but he's going to be around the organization, Exhibit 10, etc. Obviously, the starting lineup was not great, as discussed a minute ago, but in the first quarter of the game, they played a lineup that was Lamont Butler, Caleb Houston, Jacob Toppin, Eli Njai, and Charles Bassey. And if you poll the average Hawks fan, they might know 0 of those guys, potentially. So that's interesting, to be sure. There was an awesome block shot by Eli Njai in the first quarter that was actually pretty darn impressive. And Atlanta led by 11 points, which is kind of shocking at that point in time, given who was playing, who wasn't. They had a 14-point lead at one point, actually, in the second quarter. It was 11 at the end of the first. But I will say Miami's defense got a lot better, and it got a lot better in a hurry. Early on in the second quarter, it was like pretty excruciating to watch the Hawks try to play offense, honestly, from that point for a while after that. The Heat made a big run after that because of that offensive dip from the Hawks. But Jacob Toppin was probably the linchpin for the Hawks in some ways. He had back-to-back rim attacks for good, kind of driving, easier buckets in the second quarter. There was a play where he had a perfectly kind of found the seam of the defense and attacked it for a potential 3-point play down the line. Newell had a couple of nice moments, I thought. Generally speaking, he was 0-5 from 3, but had 14 points, 6 or 7 from 2 in the first half, and was getting the line with some good aggressiveness. I think I mentioned before, but Keaton Wallace left the game at halftime. He actually was, because Quinn said after the game, he was sick before the game even started. He ended up playing the first half, and the second half, he did not keep playing because he just basically couldn't. But yeah, other than that, everybody else, just to say this out loud, we don't know any other injuries. Quinn did say bumps and bruises or whatever, but there's no listings. We'll see. Beyond that, there was a fun 3-5 pick and roll with Toppin and Bassey actually for a dunk in the third quarter. They had to play a lot of Butler at the point plus Juricic, so even less creation in some ways. Offensively, the Hawks scored 41 points in the middle quarters. It was a pretty tough watch offensively, execution-wise. Kind of lack of spacing, lack of creation, some bad shooting, all mixed into one, and that was kind of tough. Quinn challenged an out-of-bounds call and won the challenge in the fourth quarter. That was kind of funny if you were an onlooker in the stadium. But first, the drama at the end of the game. The Hawks were up by 7 points with 2 minutes to go regulation, and they blew that lead. Miami had the ball down 2 with 9 seconds left in the game, and I thought for sure they're going to shoot a 3 to avoid overtime because no one on the team side wants to play overtime in a preseason game. But Miami went right to the rim. They scored overtime, and there we were. Then Tava hits back-to-back threes in the overtime period for the Hawks. They go up in the early portion. And then the Hawks kind of slipped, and they were actually down by 7 with about a minute to go in overtime. 7. And they scored 10 points in the final minute, including a Caleb Houston 3 for the lead with 13 seconds left in the overtime period. So, again, not trying to make this out just be anything that actually wasn't. They didn't have some crazy performance here. They were fine. It was undermanned roster-wise. But to win this one kind of in memorable fashion, it was, of course, everyone said this, but it's definitely true. Harking back to the Seth Lundy shot about, I think it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now, in a preseason game that kind of won things for the Hawks. But, a ho-hum kind of stealing of a game at the end of it for Atlanta. First, before we dive into the player stuff on some of the big picture, I would say the Hawks do have one more tune-up game to come. It's on Thursday. If I had to guess, and I will say right now it's a guess, I'm not reporting this, it would be logical for the Hawks to play their guys in that game. They did play them in Houston and in Memphis, most of them. Alexander Walker did not play in Memphis. But they play Houston, again, in a rematch from 10 days prior. But it's an ESPN2 game. It's kind of the final tune-up, potential for a dress rehearsal for Atlanta in that spot. I don't have a huge problem. I know there were a lot of Hawks fans that were bothered by the team not playing anybody tonight. I agree with that stance, but also don't have a huge problem with it. Like, it's not great if you're going to have one game that you don't play any of your guys and have it be at home. Just the way the schedule breaks down. I'm sure it's probably because they had the game on Saturday, but you could have sent a skeleton crew to Memphis instead, and that would have been a little bit more understandable for your fans. But to have a night where you're playing literally your top 8 guys are not playing is kind of tough for fans and or even the media, honestly, but worse for fans. So we just want to say that out loud. Didn't love it, but it happens sometimes, and we'll dive into the rest of this in a second when it comes to how players performed in this game, plus my takeaway from the first 2 games of the preseason. And we'll get to all that and more in just one moment. A lot of people can't even name their financial accounts or even what they are worth in their own lives, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. If there's not a full picture in your life, you actually leave money on the table sometimes, and that's why Monarch Money is very important. It's the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your financial life together in one clean, personal use interface. And it's really easy to use as well, either on your laptop or on your phone. And Monarch is both for people that actually have busy lives, like myself, honestly. If you're putting off organizing your finances in the past, Monarch is definitely for you. They do have the thing for you there at Monarch Money. You can look at all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without any of the touching of spreadsheets that you might not want to do in your own life. And for me, I linked all my accounts together in Monarch Money, and we immediately spotted some stuff to actually save on. I have some costs that I actually get rid of each and every month, and cancel those commitments alone, saving money all of the time. You maximize your investments, increase your savings rates, easily review finances with a financial advisory with your partner, or generally keep a clear view of your financial health, both in the short term and in the long term with Monarch Money. Do not let a financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA right now at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off. 50% off right now your first year at monarchmoney.com. That's monarchmoney.com, and use that code. It's LOCKEDONNBA. All right, and quickly a kind of rundown of who played well and who did not. Not necessarily anybody was particularly bad in this game today. Some highlights off the bench. Caleb Houston had 5 threes, including the game winner. He had his 21 points in the game. He had 5 fouls. Houston definitely is a specialist type three-point shooter. That's a huge NBA skill he has, and he definitely showed that off in this game. He was 0-3 on twos, but 5-8 from 3. That's line 6 times. Did his job. I thought he looked better overall defensively as well in this game. Lamont Butler had a big one, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. Did turn the ball over 5 times. He was not efficient. He was 2 of 8 on twos, 18 points on 18 shooting possessions. It's not like fantastic at all, but I thought he did a pretty decent job. He's been around the team. He was around the team at Summer League. He just wasn't healthy enough to play. But a guy that the Hawks did like and target coming out of the draft process. So a rookie from San Diego State and Kentucky, but a guy who actually has some juice in his legs. Charles Bassey had 17 rebounds and 5 blocks in the game. That's very impressive. Obviously, he did not shoot the ball well, 3 from 2 in the game, but 7 points, a game best plus 10 for the Hawks. And again, 17 rebounds, 31 minutes. He was flying around, and Charles Bassey has a reputation, and I think an earned one, for being a really good shot blocker, a really good rebounder. And those two things definitely came out to the fore in this game. Eli Njai, a couple nice flash plays, 5 points, 3 rebounds, and for him, had a block shot as well. He was not awesome offensively, took some bad shots. I thought he was probably overzealous, but I do quite like Eli Njai's defense. Like, it's pretty impactful when it's going well. Nikola Juricic had an interesting game, kind of not a huge breakout performance. 7 points, 6 shots, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Was kind of just fine, didn't do anything terrible nor fantastic, and he was kind of the backup point guard in the second half of the game. Keaton Wallace, 13 minutes in starting role, actually, this one. He was sick, so I don't want to knock him for that too much, but he was not particularly good when he was out there. Vit Krejci couldn't make a 3. He was 1 of 7 from 3, but did 2 assists, 2 rebounds, 7 points. Vit was fine. And Foy Dante, I thought was pretty good, actually. 4.7 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block. He was very active, I thought, defensively, using that kind of length that he has, those athleticism that he has. I think he's a quality third center, and that's what he's going to be on this roster if he makes the team. Asa Newell, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals for Asa. He was 0 of 6 on threes and 7 of 12 on twos. But beyond the threes, and 0 of 6 is going to be tough for anybody to do regularly, but I thought he was good overall beyond that. Jacob Toppin played 42 minutes. That's a crazy number for a preseason game. Obviously, he's on a 2-way contract. I think he's going to play some minutes this year for the Hawks, but 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists for Toppin. Also had 2 blocks and a steal. He was plus 3. Only 7 of 14 on 2, which is actually not too bad, but 2 of 9 from 3, which is not fantastic either. But I thought Toppin was pretty good, and I continue to like him as a kind of depth piece. He can play both forward spots, defend a little bit, shoot a little bit, etc., etc. Before I dive in and get out of here, we'll kind of get to the rest of the preseason so far. Again, if you missed it, I was traveling abroad. I did not have the requisite equipment / internet access / timing to do podcasts from there, but I did a 5-show week last week, despite being gone. So we're kind of back in the saddle here, but keep listening to that from last week. But the first 2 games, not a huge proxy for me, but the Hawks often play the real rotation basically in the first half of both games. And they had in the first half, a 119.4 offensive rating in those 2 games in 4 quarters combined. Good assist rate, good shooting numbers overall. Shot quality was really good in those minutes. Basically, when the Hawks have played their actual guys who matter, they've been pretty good offensively. Also, encouraging to me that they were able to do that without making threes. They shot 29% or so from 3 in the first 2 games and still managed to put up almost 1.2 points per possession. That is very, very impressive offensively. This is not going to be all-encompassing, but a couple notes here. Jalen Johnson looks great to me. Shot 63% from the field the first 2 games. Looks good physically. Looks to be strong, playing with aggressiveness and physicality and decisiveness. He's been playing on the ball some with Trey off the ball, or Trey off the floor. I love what I see from Jalen. Obviously, the hype train is going to get going quickly, and that makes sense. But I thought Jalen looked really good in his first 2 games post-surgery. Trey shot the ball very poorly in the first 2 games. Process-wise, has been good, lots of the right reads, the right passes, and they've run pick and roll with him in a lot of different partners already this year. So he'll be out there. It'll be fine. Luke Kennard looks comfortable to me in the Hawks offense. Of course, I think they're probably wanting to be more aggressive, which is always going to be a talking point. Even at Media Day 2 weeks ago now, that was on the bingo card discussion. But Luke is fitting in well on the ball. Nickeil Alexander-Walker missed the second game with personal reasons, but other than that, he looked really good in the first game, letting it fly offensively, shooting the ball with confidence, etc. I would say it's been kind of sloppy for sure, as to be expected with new pieces. I wish we could have seen more of those guys tonight, of course. But the bigs have played together a bunch. Mo Gay wasn't even in rotation a couple times so far this year. He didn't play today due to the coach's decision, it seems like. Also, it's been a lot of Keaton Wallace. I mentioned that before. He played some tonight, but he was actually in the rotation seemingly ahead of Vit Krejci couple times already. That's interesting to me. I think Vit's a better player than Keaton, but certainly a different skill set. They want Keaton's defense and more traditional point guardy kind of stuff. That could be in mind for him being back on the roster. But I'm intrigued. We'll see how this goes. But I thought the Hawks looked pretty good. That's my standing right now. Not really a hot take, but through 3 games, the Hawks look like they're supposed to look. Now, they're not blowing teams out. They have 2 wins. The 1 loss was close against a good team in Houston on the road. Not everybody's been perfect, But I think if you're trying to like track progress, which is basically what you're trying to do with the preseason, is just trying to figure out what's real and what's not. I think the Hawks look the part of a good team. I think they are a good team. We'll get into that kind of between now and opening night about like projections, final stuff on this podcast. But certainly I've been liking the way that they have looked to this point. That's all I have on today's podcast. I will say the Hawks have, again, one more time that it will gather to play a basketball game between now and the opener next week against Toronto. And it's going to be at home again on Thursday. So the Hawks, from the time they got back from Memphis on Saturday night, they are home for like 11 or 12 straight days until the actual opener arrives. That's a good scheduling court for Atlanta. But it's Thursday at 7:30 against Houston in a home-and-home. This was the return for the Rockets, and we'll have a podcast after that. By the way, we'll have a podcast all week long. So I'm now back in the country. I'm certainly on fumes right now, but I'll be having 5 episodes, at least 4 episodes this week. So if you want to lock it in right now, I would definitely appreciate that. Please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there as well at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland, and I'm also my non-podcast work on the Hawks can be found at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Everybody, I appreciate you being here as always. Please, one more time, check out last week's podcast when it comes to deep dives with Joe Johnson, Trae Young, crossover episodes, etc. Busy on the show. We appreciate you listening as always, and we'll see you all next time.